Thanks everybody for coming. We always enjoy these meetings with the Board of Regents and BESE. Particularly these days, we have a lot of joint efforts that we're working on. Teacher preparation being one of the most exciting ones, but dual enrollment also being, to me, a very exciting topic. And the extra chances that it's giving our high school students to get a really good look at their possible futures, I think is a really great thing for us to be working on. So let's go ahead and get started. Can we get a roll call? We have 2 roll calls to do, I believe.
Ms. Blanchard, would you call the roll for Board of Regents, please?
Regent Adley.
Here.
Regent Brandt is absent. Regent Chabert is absent. Regent Dupre is absent. Regent Moore.
Here.
Regent Fenstermaker is absent. Regent Gorman is absent. Regent Henning is absent. Regent Kenny is absent. Regent Levy.
Here.
Regent Lipsy.
Here.
Regent Markle is absent. Regent Martin is absent. Regent Stream is absent. Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Wiley is absent. We do not have a quorum.
The roll for BESE, Dr. Bophy.
Present.
Dr. Bophy is present. Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Davis is present. Ms. Edmonston.
Present.
Ms. Edmonston is present. Mr. Gorby.
Here.
Mr. Gorby is present. Ms. Holloway.
Present.
Ms. Holloway is present. Dr. Jones.
Present.
Dr. Jones is present. Ms. Lewis.
Present.
Ms. Lewis is present. Ms. Orange Jones. Mr. Rock.
Present.
Mr. Rock is present. Dr. Thomason.
Present.
Dr. Thomason is present. And Ms. Vautier.
Here.
Ms. Vautier is present. You do have a quorum, Mr. Gordon.
Okay, and Ms. Jones is on her way, from what I've been told. I'd also like to mention that the Board of Regents had a meeting scheduled for today that got canceled, just for those who were curious. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Can we do that when one of us doesn't have a quorum?
We can. We can record in the minutes that there was no quorum present, and we'll bring it back to the boards to approve in December at the joint meeting.
Okay, sounds good. So we will dispense with item number 3 on the agenda and move on to category number 4, items for consideration. And the first item we have on that list for this board is
Item 4.1, consideration of a BESE Board of Regents joint proposal regarding the Believe and Prepare teacher preparation and certification framework.
And to handle this issue, do we have to have a motion on the floor to start considering this item?
We can, but again, we don't have a quorum for Board of Regents, so the minutes will indicate there's no quorum.
Okay.
What about for BESE? Can we take action as BESE?
I would think we could.
Okay. I'm getting indication from staff that that's correct.
Okay, so do we need to get a motion on the floor? Ms. Davis?
Motion? What do you do?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, Mr. Davis, I think you were going to offer a motion.
I do. I'd like to offer the motion to endorse, as to be presented, the creation and implementation of a competency-based certification structure. Mr. Mann, you start over for the record there. To endorse as presented, the creation and implementation of a competency-based certification structure, given all appropriate resources, requiring completion of a competency-based curriculum, successful demonstration of mastery of competencies, embedding meaningful clinical experiences, and incorporating a full year fiscally sustainable residency, including but not limited to the following: a timeline for BESE policy changes, timeline for districts and universities to meet in order to realign teacher preparation programs, timeline for implementation, and the formation of a small work group to examine current and potential costs for full-year residencies.
Thank you, sir. Can we get a second on that motion? Ms. Bophy? Thank you, and I'd like to note that this is on page 7 of the packet. And I believe we have a presentation from the department on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of both boards, I'll just give you a brief bit of history on this. Over the last several years, institutions of higher learning and K-12 school systems and schools have been piloting the idea that, like nurses and somewhat like physicians, our teachers should have an extended period during which they are learning under the tutelage of mentors in an apprentice or a residency environment. This would be a continuation of good work that the Board of Regents and BESE have done together over the last couple of decades to innovate in our educator preparation programs. And now, literally this year, as we speak, students will be coming into their senior years of college and in master's programs experiencing full residencies. At the same time, that's not something that has been taken to scale across the entirety of the state, and doing so necessitates important policy considerations that, in particular, BESE will have to adopt regarding the requirements for programs that provide licensure instruction and evaluation to candidates. Board of Regents staff and Department of Education staff, at the urgings of specific BESE members whose involvement I greatly appreciate, have created a framework whereby we will arrive at policy decisions that are both ambitious and fiscally responsible, and a timeline that is urgent and at the same time allows for a responsible implementation. Led by Dr. Gene Burns on the Board of Regents staff and Hannah Deitch, Assistant Superintendent, on the Department of Education staff, we have begun the process that Mr. Davis outlined. That includes, for example, bringing together 6 different pilot entities. Those pilot entities over the next couple of months will work through an intensive study with Dr. Burns, with Assistant Superintendent Deitch, and myself. And we will glean what is an appropriate timeline and what are the residual costs associated with this endeavor. We will then bring a proposal to BESE from Mr. Davis's mandate that will meet with both of those parameters. In other words, what's the appropriate timeline, what's the appropriate cost structure, what costs need to be subsidized over the course of multiple years so that we can reach a sustainable conclusion and one that is good for our teachers. There's a second dimension of this which regards not just the providing of these programs, but also how you evaluate quality. I'm going to leave that to a second discussion, as that is a wholly separate policy issue, and it's something that Dr. Burns, Ms. Deitch, and I are considering separately. But I ask your endorsement of this framework and look forward to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Lucid, would you like to?
Please, Mr. Chairman, first let me apologize to your board for us not having a full board here this morning, but due to the uncertainty of what's going on across the street, we were forced to move our board meeting back to next week.
I think we all can appreciate the uncertainty.
So,
the street.
But what I'd like to assure you is that at the earliest proper time at our board, we will bring these proposals to our board. We're very fortunate to have Dr. Burns leading this, and it's no question that we will cooperate with this endeavor, but we'll bring it to our full board at the earliest possible time for a full endorsement. But we thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have 2 motions under this item, but before we take a vote on the first motion, we do have some cards I think I need to clear. Nicole Bono would like to speak, and Donald Sanji.
Good morning, Nicole Bono with Ascension Parish. I just wanted to come this morning and speak about our support of the adopting the framework. In Ascension, we have had an opportunity to experience lots of aspects of teacher certification. First, of course, as a district who hires teachers certified by all of our great universities here in the area, and then more recently in creating and starting our own certification program. And we believe that the direction that the framework is going to push us in is going to continue to ensure that the teachers that are coming into our district are prepared and able to be successful in our classrooms.
Sanjay?
I'm Don Sanjay, and I represent the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents. And I want to, first of all, reference something that's going to be presented to BESE at this regular meeting from the minutes from the Superintendent Advisory Council meeting. There was a motion to receive this report about the belief affair, but a caution to, we urge the department to delay moving this policy forward until August so that we can allow for further vetting of the policy with basically superintendents and university personnel. And the reason we say this is districts across the state are all putting budgets together, and it's a pretty tough process right now. Everybody is cutting their budget, and they're looking at ways to cut costs. It's gotten to the point where most of them are increasing class sizes, they're laying off teachers, they're cutting programs, and in this environment, to bring in something new that potentially could have some effects on the budgets and some costs that would further strain these budgets, we'd like to just look at it a little bit more closely and make sure that these issues have been addressed.
I should have mentioned in my comments, with my apologies to you for not doing that, Donald. We have recommended to the board that they accept the recommendation from the superintendents and adopt no policy this month, instead deferring any policy to the August meeting or beyond.
Okay, we have Mr. Corville and Ms. Moe.
How y'all doing? Dr. Keith Corville, Executive Director of the Associated Professional Educators of Louisiana. I just wanted to keep this pretty simple for y'all. I've heard a lot of good things from the participants in the pilot. It looks like everybody, the Board of Regents staff and the LDOE, are getting together and working out everything on this policy. I think it's a good thing, and y'all keep doing it, y'all keep pressing on it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Ms. Moe?
Debbie Moe, representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. I do think that the program is, or the concept is a good one. Even when I was a beginning teacher, the idea of residency programs floated throughout the educational community. And I believe that it is important to make sure that our teacher candidates are well trained. The year residency will do that, I believe. I do have some questions about some of the moving parts of the actual plan. I think our universities and our providers need to make sure that we have cooperating teachers, enough cooperating teachers to make sure that this plan is a success. We also need to make sure that the candidates themselves can actually financially afford to be a part of the program. If we move completely to a residency program, we need to make sure that we are not shortcutting the road for some of our best candidates who are not financially able to support themselves throughout an entire year's residency, to make this happen for them. I also believe that anytime you strengthen a program, if there are competing programs, those competing programs become much more attractive to the candidates who are looking for a perhaps expedient road into their professions. So I would hope that we would make sure that our competing alt-cert programs are also having to adhere to the same stringent guidelines to make sure that we are getting a consistent quality amongst the candidates that do come out of all of the programs. I believe that this program can work, but I do hope that we slow it down enough to make sure that all the moving parts of it do work. Otherwise, we're setting ourselves up for some form of failure or having to go back in and revamp the program. I would hope that we get it right the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moe. Our final speaker is Mr. Scott Richard.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board of Regents, Scott Richard, representing the Louisiana School Boards Association. Certainly the efforts before you today with the new framework are a positive endeavor, a move in the right direction that school boards across the state are keenly interested in to ensure we have an adequate workforce in our classrooms. But with any worthwhile endeavor, the devil's in the details. We would strongly urge and suggest that, as with any worthwhile endeavor, that all stakeholders be included, that all stakeholders be brought to the table to discuss the main barrier to making all of this work. With Mr. Lipsy mentioned so eloquently earlier, the current state of fiscal affairs, not only for higher ed and K-12 in our state, is dire, especially moving forward. With the inability of the legislature and other government entities to pull together and find the adequate resources to simply maintain the same level of funding we've had in the past for the future school year. Please be cautious as you move forward. Please be mindful of the cost associated with these endeavors. Oftentimes, these type of endeavors have unintended consequences when the details are not worked out in advance and not all stakeholders are at the table to offer input and offer insight, especially when it comes to the cost of initiating such a shift in policy as to how teachers become certified and trained to be the best that they can be for the future of our state, our students. And again, we applaud the efforts from the school board's perspective, but the devil's in the details. Let's continue to work together. Let's continue to focus on fiscal impact. Just like any bill across the street has a fiscal impact statement, let's ensure that any endeavor that comes before the Board of Regents and the BESE board has some type of fiscal impact on the folks that have to end up implementing policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have best member,
Yeah, I'd like
Ms.
to talk
Bofi.
about it.
Yes, ma'am. Please do.
I'll use this one. Thank you. I just, want to thank both the Board of Regents and the BESE staff for working on this. I just think this is incredibly important, especially this time of year as we think about our children going into their next year of school and anticipating their new teachers. I want us to be careful in the way that we think about it, but I also want us to think about how important this is and act with a sense of urgency. I would struggle as a parent in putting my child in the classroom of a first-year teacher and having confidence that he would grow the way that he would need to in that first year. And so when I feel that way, I'm sure that other parents feel that way, and I think that we should always present what's best. What we want for our own children should be what we want for all children in the state. And so while I know that we have to balance the sense of urgency, and I know we have to think about what the financial implications are, this is an incredible responsibility that we have. And I think that we need to get past thinking about what might be adequate relative to our workforce and what we actually need in our workforce to move our students forward. So I want us to continue to keep pushing in that direction. I'm proud of the steps that we've already taken, but I'm also concerned because every day that we wait on something like this is a day that we're continuing with where we are. And so I think we just need to move forward and make sure that our kids have teachers who are prepared and ready on day one.
Thank you, Ms. Bofi. I would note that we are moving so cautiously on this that I first heard ideas about this issue over 20 years ago. So,
Well, those
your
children
point,
are now graduated.
your point is well taken. Ms. Voce?
Okay, Mr. Garvey, I've been in this business 45 years. So I've been hearing about it that long as well. But having said that, and I too, I think the work that's being done by the group and Dr. Burns has been very helpful in working with BESE staff, department, in trying to iron out some of the issues that have been brought up in both the universities and in the school systems as well. And I just want to make sure that what we're doing today is that we're endorsing something in concept, and that this working group then will bring recommendations in August. I'm concerned about a couple of areas in this. One, I guess that's mostly the concern of the universities and the transfer of courses, and I'm sure that they will deal with that particular issue when we move to a competency-based or a mastery of the competencies concept. So that really wouldn't be a concern for the K-12. But the other two issues in terms of licensure exams and such, I'm assuming, Superintendent White, that's still going to be under discussion as to what we're looking at, if we're staying with the praxis concept or moving towards something else. And then the other piece, as we've had this discussion, is the sustainability of the costs of the program. The idea, I think we're all very excited, and I know I, as a superintendent, excited about the year-long residency concept, because the more actual practice that a teacher candidate would have, the better they are under a really highly effective mentor. I know that we're talking about some federal funding in the initial couple of years if we move toward this, but hopefully this working group will look toward a more long-term sustainability in terms of cost issues for this program, because that part of it is extremely important. And as some of the speakers have pointed out, all programs are wonderful, and as we sit and look at the finite pots of money that we have to fund each initiative, that as we line them up in priority, in order to put in something new and something that we all already have has to be maybe cut and those funds redirected. So in concept, I'm very excited about this. I just want to look very closely from the K-12 perspective in terms of the licensure exams and the actual sustainability of the cost of the residency, which I think is something that we should move to.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other comments from board members?
So, Superintendent, just to answer that
Yeah.
question on the licensure, is that going to be part of this discussion as well?
That is not part of Mr. Davis's motion. We have committed with Dr. Burns to convening a task force to study whether there should be changes in the licensure examinations. Candidly, I don't think we know enough at this stage to determine whether or not there should be, and if there is, it will be a product of that working group that we would then bring back for considerable discussion at BESE. Right now, there are no changes planned for licensure
So
assessment.
part of this proposal, if what is being brought to us in August as part of the proposal, does not propose any licensure exam changes?
No.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman?
Davis?
Yeah, I have one more motion I'd like to put in to round out this work. The motion will be to endorse, as presented, the creation implementation for approval of teacher preparation programs and an accountability system that is aligned to Louisiana policies and that objectively evaluates the effectiveness of all state-approved teacher preparation programs in Louisiana, including but not limited to the following: the formation of a small work group to consider the teacher preparation accountability system, the presentation of a report to BESE and the Board of Regents regarding available and sustainable resources, and timeline for BESE policy changes.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion? Ms. Holloway? Thank you. Do we have anything from the department on this?
Yes, please. Shan Davis and Dr. Burns have formed with me a three-part group to consider the flip side of this, which is then once you have a residency in motion, what policies does BESE, under Ms. Davis's guidance, the Board of Regents, under Dr. Burns, and of course the Commissioner's guidance, and the department, how do they approve a program to exist? And then once it does exist, how is it graded as quality or not? Ms. Davis, Dr. Burns, and myself have each made nominations to a working group, and we are meeting on a weekly basis. We will convene that working group after this residency process that Mr. Davis referred to earlier is completed. And I think the overall message I would say about this is, for years in higher education, there have been accreditation processes that have assured the public, the students, the teachers, the families, the faculty, et cetera, of a rating and evaluative dimension. There is not that, however, in the alternative programs. And we are creating one umbrella, the task force, Ms. Davis, Dr. Burns, and I are discussing one umbrella for all programs, because we have to remember, of course, that higher education is not the sole provider, nor are traditional programs within higher education the only programs that higher education operates. So we are simply asking you to endorse and essentially mandate to Ms. Davis, myself, and to Dr. Burns that we move ahead with the work of a working group that ultimately will bring back at some point in the next year a recommendation regarding the quality framework. And I should say that I didn't say it before, I'm very thankful for both Dr. Burns and for Ms. Davis. They've worked very collaboratively with Assistant Superintendent Deach and myself, and I'm very appreciative of the time they've put into this. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any comments from BESE members or Board of Regents members on this? Ms. Brophy?
So my question is about timeline on this one. If we're looking at getting a report, and that the Board of Regents is also getting a report, what do we anticipate would be the timeline here?
I think we are assuming during the 2016-17 year. Ms. Davis and Dr. Burns and I have kicked around particular dates. We were originally targeting December of 2016, but I don't think that it's probably necessary to box us into this. We are thinking about convening experts from within Louisiana and around the country, K-12, higher education, and policy experts. And we are anticipating one or two very deep dive meetings into a design of a system that learns from the work that we're doing in many of your parish school systems presently. So I think we're thinking the work will happen over the course of the fall. Shan and Jean, I think that's fair to say, but I don't want to box us into a December timeline.
And I just wouldn't want you boxed in by our joint meeting. So if this is very important. If there's a need for us to get together sooner to hear something, please let us know.
And I think we will certainly do that.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any objections to the motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. Ms. Ford, before we go to the next item, I want to note again that some of the members at the table from the Board of Regents are going to have to leave at 10 o'clock to go over to the legislature with all of the unknowns that are happening over there. It's understandable that we need to keep a close eye on what's going on. With that in mind, Superintendent White, with the presentations that you have coming up, do you want to take any out of order in order to make sure we get them covered?
I do think that 4.4 probably just needs a very quick consideration. You have, as boards, put the advanced...
Before we do that, can we get a motion to take
I'm sorry.
4.4 out of order? Ms. Holloway, second by Mr. Jones. Any objections? Hearing none, let's take 4.4. Ms. Ford, can you read that for us, please?
Item 4.4, consideration of updates to the Weighted Taylor Opportunity Program for students, TOPS, grade point average, GPA, approved list of courses by John White, State Superintendent of Education.
Okay, can we get a motion to receive this report? Ms. Brophy, second by Ms. Edmonston. Any objections? Hearing none, we'll hold off on the vote and take the report.
I was just going to say that you have put the AP Computer Science into the framework that is acceptable for the high school diploma as a fourth-year math course and is acceptable for TOPS now under the law. We are asking you now to place it into Board of Regents policy that would allow, or excuse me, to jointly adopt and put into policy that it would be allowable for a weighted award in the TOPS GPA calculation. This has been something we've done with other dual enrollment and advanced placement courses. We're asking this course be added to that list.
Okay, are you looking for a motion for us to take that action, or are we just receiving the report?
I believe we need a motion. We would need a motion to take that action.
Can we get a motion to take that action? Ms. Holloway? Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any comments or questions? Hearing none, do we have any objections to that motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. Okay. Can we go on to the next item then?
We'll return to the regular agenda item. Out of order, item 4.2, consideration of a report regarding the release of the new teacher preparation data dashboard.
Can we get a motion to receive this report? Mrs. Jones, second by Mrs. Jones. Superintendent, you have a presentation for us.
I'm either doing 4.2 or 4.3, which I'm going to do it now. I thought I was doing both under 4.3.
I was thinking 4.2 on the teacher data dashboard.
All right, well, I'd like to take them both together, if that's okay, because I haven't missed it.
Please do.
Okay, now I'll do 4.3, if that's okay with you.
Can you cover the 4.3 issue under 4.2?
I'll cover 4.2 under 4.3.
Okay. Can we get a motion to take 4.3? We have Mr. Jones, second by Ms. Edmonston. Okay. That motion is on the floor. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. And first off, let me thank the superintendent and many others around this table for the spirit of cooperation in trying times, and I know that we will be successful on behalf of all of our students. Let me provide a very brief context for my two issues that are topics that I'm going to cover. If you look at page 3 of the minutes, last time when we met and when we spoke about the Elevate Louisiana, which was the aspirational goal that the Board of Regents has adopted to basically guide as we move forward. Under that, there are two subsets: to educate and to innovate. The education obviously speaks to classroom, and the innovation speaks increasingly about research and innovation. But the thing I want to highlight, one of the other parts which really comes to the conversation today, one of the other parts of the Elevate Louisiana is the creation of a spectrum of opportunity, which really starts in the junior and senior year of high school and moves forward into the certificates and the associates and beyond. You know, sort of truth in advertising. Both of my parents in New York City were high school teachers at one point in their career, and I remember that they would graduate students from high school, and there was no connection between what happened in high school and what happened in college. So under Elevate Louisiana, the spectrum of opportunity really speaks to the two topics that I'm going to address today, one of which is dual credit, and the second is the dashboard of teacher preparation. Last time, again, we noted that a significant, probably 40+% of students who graduate from high school in Louisiana must take a remedial class. And we sought legislation this past session to try to see if we can get some movement on working more closely together. And although the legislation did not succeed, we basically embedded that network of pathways between high school and college in our new fiscal realities document that the board adopted, speaking about the fact that as we engage in a reality where our budgets are half of what they used to be, how can we make better use of high school preparation for the universities? So when you speak about the dual credit, and we are firmly behind that, and we firmly believe in that, and HCR 141 with Representative Broadwater encourages collaboration between K through 12 and certainly junior and senior year in college. So this next year, we're going to revisit better articulation of dual credit to college. I think everyone understands articulation agreements usually look at junior college to the 4 years, but we're also talking about how best to utilize that very valuable resource of dual credit to make sure a student takes the type of classes that will get credit and begin to move them toward that career path. The second thing we're looking at is the Jumpstart advising process, the technical programs for the high-wage, high-demand jobs, and really encouraging students to look at articulating those classes into the types of preparation they would take primarily at the community and technical colleges. And then also to enhance the preparation of high school faculty teaching dual credit classes. Under Regent College Temple, Dr. Burns has been meeting with many people over the past year on talking about how we can ensure and make sure that the preparation of those faculty members high school faculty members who are teaching college classes is where it should be, and we're working diligently on that. And that ties really to the second topic, which is the dashboard. And the dashboard, really, I believe you have something in your material, but there are a couple of things I'd like to present. First off, it includes all institutions, public and private, and alternative certification. The second thing is that we will be releasing next week the 2015 Teacher Preparation Data Dashboard and Fact Book, so people can have those for their use. And for those individuals who are not aware of the dashboards, they are a voluntary effort to provide the public with accurate information about teacher preparation programs in Louisiana. And whenever I hear the word voluntary, and I double-check with Dr. Burns, I wanted to make sure that we were not just getting one institution that was giving us some data, but she assures me that although it's voluntary, there is a lot of participation, which is good. The first data dashboard was released in fall of 2014. I said the 2015 ones next week, and the 16 dashboards will be released in the fall. So what do they provide? They provide information about the preparation of teachers who taught in Louisiana schools, and the types of information will include passage rate on state licensure assessments, number of clock hours for clinical experiences, percentage of teachers who began teaching in Louisiana schools this year after completion, retention rates of completers over 5 years, and I think that's vitally important because although I'm not in the K-12 environment, I have a lot of friends who are, and the burnout rate is way too high, so we're looking at completers after 5. Performance of completers during their first and second year of teaching using state compass teacher evaluation and additional information. And so this is a great example, an excellent example of how higher education is being very transparent, going to your point about putting students in the classroom, with the public regarding the performance of teacher preparation programs in Louisiana. As I said, although it's voluntary, I believe it gives an accurate and true picture of what we're doing in this state. So I'm happy to answer questions, but Dr. Burns is also here. But again, I want to thank BESE. I want to thank the superintendent for the spirit of cooperation as we move forward in what might be considered trying times. So thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions from BESE members or Board of Regents members? Hearing none, we have a speaker on this item, Scott Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Regents. Scott Richard, again, Executive Director of the School Boards Association. Applaud the efforts, applaud the resolutions encouraging more of a seamless transition from the K-12 world to post-secondary education. I do want to raise an issue that came up during the regular legislative session in which K-12 was adamantly opposed to an effort by the Board of Regents in regards to House Bill 828 by Representative Lance Harris. Not so much in the concept, but in the actual mechanics of that instrument that would certainly have hampered and pretty much stopped in its tracks the existing early college academies that exist in our state, specifically in Lafayette Parish and Ascension Parish, two exemplars that we hold up as shining lights in our state and ask other districts to consider to replicate, whereby local school boards are partnering with community colleges to create early college academies where students as early as 9th grade are earning dual enrollment credit and graduating with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. And it's unfortunate that we're often pitted against each other in these trying financial times, K-12 and higher ed. And we would hope, and I would think the intent of both legislators in passing these resolutions, Representative Broadwater and Senator Walsworth, would do nothing to diminish the efforts that have been very successful across our state and that are being replicated in many districts that have the financial means to do it, to put kids in a dual enrollment class as early as 9th grade. And we would hope that the work of these two resolutions and the joint efforts of the Board of Regents and BESE and the Department of Education and State Superintendent White would do nothing to reverse those efforts. And that I felt it was important to come to the table and reiterate these issues that were expressed during the legislative session that went on for several weeks in deliberations in House Education Committee. And I would invite any of the members of the boards, respectively, to take a look at that dialogue and that testimony and look at the reasons why K-12 institutions and superintendents were adamantly opposed to that measure, which would have, again, hampered and pretty much wiped out early college academies that we hold as exemplars in our state. Be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. Scott, can you
Ms.
be
Evanston.
more specific about the bill that I'm not familiar with? So what was the
The bill dealt with remedial education and would have basically required, before a student could enroll in a dual enrollment class, that they had taken the ACT and met the minimum requirements on the ACT, which a student doesn't normally take the ACT until 11th grade. In our districts, we have encouraged and spent millions of dollars to create early college academies and efforts to get kids enrolled in dual enrollment classes as early as 8th grade in some places, and lower, if the ability is there and the means are there. And this particular instrument would have stopped those efforts in their tracks.
So that didn't pass, did it?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rallo.
Thank you, and with great respect to my colleague, let me explain a little bit differently about why the board suggested that. As I indicated last time and this time, about 40% of our students who graduate from high school need remedial classes at the university. And our proposal said that rather than graduate them and leave it up to the university, we were recommending, because the ACT scores, the cut scores are available before the senior year, that remediation take place in high school. You know, I'm a former business dean, a former business professor, and I don't want to use the word student as product. I don't ever mean to say that. But if 40% of your product has flaws, we respectfully requested they be remediated at the high school level. So sadly, that did not occur. The other two words I always use is that agility and rigor. And neither agility normally is not associated with public higher education. We are making commitments to try to be much more agile. But the other word I use is rigor. We have to graduate students, whether it's Louisiana or Texas or Illinois, that can compete with students from Taiwan or from Houston. And sadly, we believe that the number of students who graduate from high school requiring remediation does not fulfill that rigor. We're going to work together, but I just at least wanted to put that on the table.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rallo.
May I?
Do you have any?
I'm sorry.
Superintendent White.
I think that this dialogue is, first of all, is a good one. I agree with Scott. I had concerns about the bill when it came forward. I had not seen a draft of it. It was posted, and I reacted in the same way he did. On the other hand, I'm sympathetic to what the commissioner's saying. We just got results on the CLEP test back from those students that take dual enrollment CLEP. Of those that took dual enrollment college algebra, only 35% passed the CLEP. That's not an indictment of dual enrollment. That's an indictment of all of us for having kids that are not at that level yet, taking and preparing and having an ambition to go to college. So this is not an us versus them issue, but it is going to involve many, many hard discussions. We need to acknowledge that dual enrollment is a good thing, but that it happens in extremely different ways with very little visibility, transparency, and regimentation across the state. If we want to grow it, which I agree with the commissioner, and I believe, Mr. Chairman, you have voiced this to me as well, we should. And to Scott's points, I think we should do it in the right way. But it necessitates very difficult discussions about, is it truly equivalent at a minimum level of quality from institution to institution, from faculty member to faculty member, from school to school? Is it priced in an equivalent and fair way from one place to the next? Is the accountability and measurement done in a way that is transparent and clear from one place to the next? And that is just going to necessitate, within our systems and between our systems, extremely difficult discussions. All of which is to say that I urge all parties, school boards and BESE, institutions, systems, and the Board of Regents, to address these resolutions with the seriousness that I think that they convey, which necessitates a year-long, extremely in-depth process of
Do we have any objections to that motion? Hearing none, that motion carries. Does that complete our agenda for today? There we go. Thank you very much. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?